Greetings. This is Celebration. My name is John Savers. I'm your host, and today we'll take a continuing look in our mini-series, Jews and Their Culture. Now, for those of you new to Celebration, this is a program which focuses on people and their cultures. We try to understand them better, to find out what makes them tick, to look at the good, the bad, the indifferent. We do bear in mind, of course, such comments as Hannah Arendt's The Banality of Evil, so that we do look sometimes at what may seem to be a rather ordinary stuff. We also don't overemphasize the plus if we think it's pretty well covered by the major media, because we don't want to bore you by escorting you through well-known turf, although it's inevitable that we do touch upon this from time to time as well. We like to go, as they used to say in Star Trek, where no man has gone before, or at any rate, very few. So insights and new understandings can be had. Now, of course, some people are annoyed and become perhaps even hostile at programs which deal with them and their culture, and they think don't emphasize the pretty and positive and so forth sufficiently. We don't feel that that's our duty, actually. We do try to give people a better understanding, to make them better armed, as it were, to make them aware. So this is our approach. It's somewhat educational, but at any rate, we have for the last several programs looked at the question just who or what is a Jew, that is, according to the flesh, and we have, I think, gotten a better understanding on this particular subject in that regard. Now, today we hope to have a recap for those, of course, who may have missed these other programs and so forth, before journeying on, and we will be taking up the subject of law and concepts of God within Jewry, especially the Talmudist, because we think that this is the heart of what Jewry is all about, and therefore this would be our thrust. This does not mean we will not touch upon those groups that are estranged, as it were, from the Talmud, but that is not going to be our focus. We may, I think, take an approach along the way of what might be called sic et non, in which we look at the ideal stated by Jewry, and also feature something of the practical aspect as well. So with this upcoming, let's go ahead with this recap, beginning with the following. We'll try to find out again the main lines, and we'll do that now. However, it is most interesting that his, Carmi's son, Achar, is referred to as the troubler of Israel, who transgressed in the thing accursed. While it appears impossible to prove, it is suggested that Carmi and his son Achar, the troubler of Israel, were in the genealogy of Shelah. This is a citation from Pastor Bob Hallstrom. Who are the Pharisees and the Jews? Are they Israel? A study, page 5. Now, for those of you who missed that particular episode, this references the appearance in the Bible of the group known as the Jews of Elath, and the line of Judah Shelah, which is one which is half Canaanite. So we call that to your attention, and we'll go forward. From 745 to 721 BC, the 10-tribed house of Israel was taken into Assyrian captivity. 2 Kings 18:11. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Cutha, and from Ava, and from Hamath, and Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria, and dwelt in the cities thereof, feared not the Lord. 2 Kings 17:24-25. Now, people, it seems reasonable to me that when the Judahite remnant was removed from Jerusalem to Babylon, that some of these very people descended from Samaria into the vacated land. We think this process probably began when the Assyrian captivity took place, and 200,000 of Judah were taken off, the great bulk of Judah taken off at that time. We think that land that was occupied by these 200,000 was probably taken over in part by these people from Samaria. You know, the landless, the poor, and so forth would have a great incentive to go down where there was free land, so to speak. You remember the Oklahoma opening of the land and the so-called Sooners and how they raced for the land and so forth. It's not unheard of, in other words. Of course, we also have coming up from the north, from the south rather, Edomites and perhaps a few Amalekites and perhaps the Jews of Elath. This last two groups are kind of speculative, but it seems very reasonable since a portion of them were in that area where Edom happened to be and appear to be related, so we think that happened also. It should also be pointed out that Esau, Keturah's children, Ishmael, and Shelah were all of the seed of Abraham, but were not of Abraham. See Romans 9. And only they could boast. We be Abraham's seed, and were never in bondage to any man. John 8:33. Citation from Pastor Bob Hallstrom. Who are the Pharisees and the Jews? Are they Israel? A study, page 14. So we do find a kind of a mixed multitude in Judea. Some people may object and say that the implication that the Judahites intermarried with these mixed multitudes was it's just guesswork, a speculation, and there's every reason to believe that they did not, or something like kind. But let me just say this much, that amongst those people who were brought into Samaria were men of Babylon. Now, we do know from the book of Esther that many Babylonian non-Jews became Jews during the period of the Jews' revenge. And there's no reason to suppose that after being circumcised, etc., they were not welcomed. And we don't see any information about them being ostracized. We think the same probably occurred to the men of Babylon who were moved into Samaria, as well as perhaps many of the other groups, many of them Canaanites. At any rate, this process we see again when Ezra and Nehemiah bring about something like 50,000 from Babylon, not all of whom were Israelites. But at any rate, they got back to the area of Jerusalem. It was not long before the Israelites were taking wives of the mixed multitude, and this caused great grief to Ezra, and he stated as much, and the Israelites, upon hearing the law and so forth, put their wives of this sort away and follow the law in this regard. But it's reasonable to assume that as time went by, the memory of Ezra diminished, waned, that the same thing began again. And therefore, it's a good bet that by the time of Christ, the Jacob-Israel genetically correct component was rather small. But let's continue. As it was written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. Romans 9:13. This hatred by God towards Esau is an attribute that the human heart cannot accept or embrace, and therefore many will try to explain it away. Thus, scores of theologians have avoided this truth of Scripture or have whitewashed it into something more appealing to the heart. God not only hates Esau, Edom, and is against these people, but refers to them as the people of my curse, Isaiah 34:5. This curse is not just on Esau, but also his seed and his brethren. But I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren, and his neighbors, and he is no more. Among Esau's brethren were the Amalekites, which were descended from one of Esau's grandsons, Genesis 36:4-12. It was these Edomite kinsmen whom God had sworn war against from generation to generation, Exodus 17:16. God's hatred of Edom is not a temporary thing, but is perpetual. A citation from Charles A. Wiseman, Who is Esau Edom? Pages 20-21. Now, people, let me just make a personal comment on this particular matter. If you look upon Yahweh as the ultimate playwright, a playwright who created protagonists and antagonists and lost identities and a complex theme, sub-themes, etc., then it becomes more understandable that the character played by the antagonist might be hated by Yahweh, while the actors per se were not. Just as a human playwright in writing a play with good guys and bad guys may develop a hatred or animosity toward his own creation, the bad guy in his own play, although he has no animosity toward the actor who portrays, who is given this role. So I think that might be borne in mind. We see Yeshua Christ returning to overcome sin, and that would be for all people. And although it may take time for some, more time than others, and positioning is important in regard to the kingdom, we do see this as probable, the overcoming of all the bad traits and so forth, and that the actors giving the bad roles, the antagonists, will find themselves eventually embraced by this playwright. So on that note, let's continue. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. Romans 9:15. But it's quite clear from this that Yahweh does not heed human opinions. Human views are not important at all in these things. It's also quite clear that there is a adversarial role here between Israel and Edom, and that this goes through time. Let's take a look at this via citation. For behold, the day comes that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that comes shall burn them up, says that Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. Malachi 4:1-3. Now, in the same vein, but shall we say in a more defined way, please consider. For the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen. As you have done, it shall be done unto you. Your reward shall return upon your own head. But upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. And they shall kindle in them, and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord has spoken it. Obadiah 1:17-18. Now, I will say this much, that it should be noted that the house of Joseph is included, and of course this is, in fact, the house of Israel, burned and destroyed by fire. In Obadiah 1:18, Esau is devoured by the flame of Jacob. Babylon will also be utterly burned with fire. Revelation 18:8. Be overthrown like Sodom and Gomorrah. Both Edom, Jeremiah 49:18, and Babylon, Jeremiah 50:40, are to end in destruction, as in the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah. Dominion over and war against Israel. As shown, Edom was to gain dominion over and afflict Israel. The system of Babylon also has dominion over God's people and makes war against them. Daniel 7:21-5, Revelation 12:17, 13:7, 17:6. Has a covert reign over the world. The final stage of rule of Babylon is a mystery. Revelation 17:5. Edom is also exalted very high, which involves hidden things. Obadiah 1:3-6. Israel to destroy and be delivered from. Both Edom, Obadiah 1:16-18, and Babylon, Revelation 18:4, are what God's people need deliverance from. This deliverance comes by God's people destroying its oppressor. Daniel 7:26-27, Revelation 18:6. The Edomites also find a parallel with the tares in the parable of the tares and the wheat. This is a citation from Charles A. Wiseman. Who is Esau Edom? Page 118. I'd like to draw your attention to the following. I think it's sort of important, and I want to present it to you. I think you'll find it interesting. The Jewish author and historian Arthur Kessler also states, the large majority of surviving Jews in the world is of Eastern European, and thus perhaps mainly of Khazar origin. If so, this would mean that their ancestors came from the Caucasus, and that genetically they are more closely related to the Hun, Uighur, and Magyar tribes than to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is a citation from Charles A. Wiseman, Who is Esau Edom? Page 9, citing Arthur Kessler, The 13th Tribe, 1967, page 17. Now, folks, some have attacked Arthur Kessler's character and credentials, and have tried to belittle him a little to sort of undercut the thrust of his book. So I would like to give you a citation from an earlier source so you know from whence it came. Professor Douglas Dunlap, F.R.A.S., was a professor in Cambridge University and later Columbia University, New York. He was awarded a D.Lit, a Doctor of Literature, for the History of the Jewish Khazars, 1954, the scholarly work on which Arthur Kessler later based The 13th Tribe. Malcolm Ross, The Spectre of Power, pages 98-99. Furthermore, in the same vein, please consider the Khazars, who had been following a pagan and sex-oriented religion, had officially embraced Judaism in 740 A.D. This is a citation from Charles A. Wiseman, Who is Esau Edom? Page 9. Now, people, we have observed so far that quite a lot of the blood which has entered into jewelry has come from traditional enemies of Israel. So in that vein, please consider the following. The Khazars and their king are all Jews, not genetically, but rather by conversion to Judaism. Some are of the opinion that Gog and Magog are the Khazars, Ezekiel 38:1-9. This is a citation from evangelist Ted R. Weiland, God's Covenant People, page 67, citing Arthur Kessler, the 13th tribe, page 46. Folks, those of you familiar with the revelation of the Bible know that Gog and Magog are prophetic enemies of Israel. According to the Jewish Encyclopedia, the original stock of the Khazars came from the land of Edom. Hasdai ibn Shaprut, who was foreign minister to Abdul al-Rahman, Sultan of Cordova, in his letter to King Joseph of the Khazars, about 960, speaks of the tradition according to which the Khazars once dwelt near the Seir Mountains. The Seir Mountains are none other than the original land of Esau Edom. Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. Genesis 36:8. This is a citation from Charles A. Wiseman, who is Esau Edom, pages 10-11, citing the Jewish Encyclopedia, volume 4, 1905, page 3, and the Bible. Some of the Edomites did in fact go beyond Idumea. Now, how could this be done? Well, it could be because of the Canaanite connection and so forth. There is bound to be a trading arm, so to speak, a component of the population of the Edomites, and a trading post or colony might easily have been set up in the Crimea, and that from this colony arose migrants into the area of the Khazars and intermingling and so forth, because surely the Edomites were not exclusive in this regard. But let's continue. His last will and testament to his children was a formula for vice. It read, "Love one another," that is, of this tribe only. "Love robbery, love lewdness, hate your masters, and do not speak the truth." This remarkable document, the Will of Canaan, is to be found in only one place in all the world's theological literature, the Babylonian Talmud, where it is presented thusly. 5 things did Canaan charge his sons: love one another, love robbery, love lewdness, hate your masters, and do not speak the truth. Pesh 113b. This is a citation from Eustace Mullins' The Curse of Canaan, page 17. Well, folks, now, if Mr. Mullins' information is correct here, and he does have a reputation as a diligent researcher, then it does present a damning commentary. Having become Satan's curse on humanity, the Canaanites now spread across the earth like some evil plague. Genesis 10:18. The families of the Canaanites were spread abroad. This diaspora brought troubles to every nation in which this people landed. Ezekiel 16:3, 45, and 46 lists the racial tribes of the Canaanites, denouncing them individually. The citation from Eustace Mullins' The Curse of Canaan, pages 22 and 23. In addition, the limits of the diaspora are not known. We assume they went north, south, east, and west. It's entirely possible that the Canaanites had previously set up some sort of colony in the area of the Crimea, which was later joined by Edomite kinfolk. Originally, Baal simply meant Lord in the Canaanite language. His wife, Ashtoreth, also known as Astarte and Ishtar, was the principal goddess of the Canaanites. She also represented the reproductive principle in nature, and in case anyone might overlook it, all of her rites were sexual observances. In Babylon, the temples of Baal and Ashtoreth were usually together. Mainly, they served as houses of prostitution, in which the priestesses were prostitutes, and the male priests were sodomites who were available for the worshippers who were of that persuasion. The worship of the Canaanite gods consisted of orgies, and all their temples were known as centers of vice. They also originated voodoo ceremonies. Again, a citation from Eustace Mullins, The Curse of Canaan, page 23. Now, folks, it might be interesting to compare this last with an opinion on Jewry from a rather important individual. So let's put this before you. Their Jewish synagogues may be likened to playhouses. They are dens of brigands, the abode of Satan, Revelation 2:9. Thieves, impure, debauchees, rapacious, misers, crafty, oppressors of the poor. This is a citation from evangelist Ted R. Weiland, God's Covenant People, page 117, citing Archbishop John Chrysostom, 407 A.D. Organized defamation of this particular bishop has occurred, and shall we say, bogus Christianity has joined in that defamation. But I have one last item in regard to this Canaanite connection which I'd like to present to you. Yet God says that the day is coming in which there shall no longer be a Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts. Zechariah 14:21, a citation from Charles A. Wiseman, who is Esau Edom, page 116. We see Jewry from all these various bloodlines as being a heterogeneous people and not a homogeneous. They are fashionably diverse, shall we say, and some have even dubbed them the melting pot people. That's all the time we have. This is Celebration. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. I appreciate your tuning in. Hope to see you again next time.